Hello, this is Emily German,
And my name is Helena Janat.
and this is Middle Class to Wealthy. Today we have Helena here, and she's telling us all about her new movement. So, Helena, what is it?
It is a movement to help people strategically build wealth. People in middle class, people in lower income, bottom line, through enlightening, education, empowerment. Um, I would say education around becoming the CEO of yourself with a board of directors,
Okay.
breaking repeating cycles. We used to call them generational curses. Making your money and then pursuing your passions, and then helping your fellow man. Empowerment by providing guidance and tools, and then strategy is through vision, collaboration, and leverage.
And I mean, you said a lot. So I want to definitely dive into what you mean by specific things. So,
Okay.
for example, like when you talk about a CEO of you with a board of directors, what does that mean?
We're often following everyone else. We're always looking for guidance. I think that that's one of the downfalls of middle class, right?
Mm-hmm.
We always think that someone knows better. And, we hear these things and we follow what we think works. But those plans aren't specific to us. No one knows our personal goals or how we're going to go about accomplishing them. And
Okay.
so we need to know what we want, how we're going to get it, where we are, and how to get from here to there. That board of directors is the people who know us, people who have accomplished some things. And so when now I start to ask for advice, I'm asking someone who doesn't just think something, someone who has their own results in their own lives. And so now when I'm asking for help and they know what it is that I want, they can give me the tips that I need to get from here to there, where I'm stuck.
Okay. And what about you talked a little bit about the breaking repeated cycles?
Yes. So cycles around how we make money, how we spend money, our debt, and relationships. And the reason why I say those things is because um, how we make money is
Mhm.
already troubling us. In middle class, we're a very vulnerable group. And so everything can affect our money. So something happens with the economy, a recession or some sort, um, our money is affected. So if they lay off and they lay me off, now it's my peace of mind and my household, my livelihood. And so we need to move from a place where we are earning income to generating income. So that way, no matter what's happening in our lives, this global pandemic, as an example, if this were to hit and we were generating income, nothing would stop our money.
Yes.
The other thing, spending our money. We don't spend like wealthy people spend. Wealthy people spend strategically. They say, if it doesn't make me money, I'm not doing it. And
Mm.
so we spend our money and it's like we're burning it up because we use it. We use it to for where we live, around, eating. And so we're not putting our money to work for us. We're just
Mhm.
spending it.
And
Um,
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but do you think that has a lot to do with what the stimulus check was for? Because like, how many of those people do you think put their money to work, or how many of those people do you think actually just went and spend that money? Does that make any?
and you know what? That stimulus check is by design. I hate to say it that way, but they know we have not been taught to use our money to our advantage. And so it's called exactly what it is. It's supposed to stimulate the economy, not us. Because $1,200, look, I'm not being ungrateful by any means, but $1,200 does not make a dent in anyone's household. It is out there to stir the economy. So yes,
Mhm.
you're absolutely right. Um, no one spent that money to get something besides food or electric, or like they used it.
Mhm. Okay.
So debt, we are typically over leveraged in this country. We have a debt crisis here. um, a huge debt crisis. But we use debt for everything, and debt is basically paying to borrow money. So we pay the halves, so we can use credit cards, loans, mortgages, and so we're paying for cups of coffee. We're paying money to borrow money to buy a cup of coffee. That's how we live. And then relationships. Relationships, okay, so the state that our country is in right now really has to do with the lack of training that we have around relationships. We are not intentional about our relationships at all, at all. Even our intimate relationships with our partners, with our family, our friends, our coworkers, our business partners, but most importantly with strangers. Earth has a lot of people on it, and we have to learn how to coexist. We don't need to like each other, but we do need to learn how to coexist. Yeah. So we need to learn how to think about our relationships, how to choose our relationships, and even how to leverage our relationships, especially if we're talking about strategically building wealth.
All right, and then what about you talk a little bit about making your own money and then pursue your passion. That's basically goes against what we've always been taught.
Yes. So yes, we have been taught to pursue your, make your money pursuing your passions. But the thing is, we still have to be able to figure that out. They taught you the concept of doing that because it will keep you interested in what you do. But they didn't teach us how to do it. And so if you need to be able to sustain your household and sustain your quality of life, do you really have the time to figure that out? So I'll give you an example. I created a nonprofit a few years ago, and I was out fighting for people to keep their houses or to learn about foreclosures. There was no money coming in the door. Yes, I really want to help everybody that I was sitting with, but they were going to foreclose on my house. So I had to go back to work and stop all operations with a nonprofit. So there's no time to figure out how to make this work for you. And then the other thing is, we can't always monetize our passions. They're not always, they don't always translate. So I think the most important thing to do is tap into systems that work, because at the end of the day, money has utility. We use it for something, right? So we need to put our money to work for us so that our income streams are unaffected. And then I can spend all day pursuing my passions, doing whatever that might be. And if it generates income, great. And if it doesn't matter, because nothing is being affected at home.
Mm-hmm. All right, that makes sense. And you talk about helping your fellow man. Tell us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So not everybody is capable of taking care of themselves. So, for example, our elderly, disabled people, people with mental illness. But that doesn't mean that they don't deserve a quality of life or dignity or what humanity has to offer. And so we need to get to a place where we're not just thinking about ourselves, because that model does not work. It just doesn't. If it did, we'd be thriving right now. But the masses are not thriving. So not only do we need to care for ourselves, we need to help those who cannot show up for themselves.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about empowering, which is one of the 3 things you mentioned.
Mm-hmm. So yes, so now that we've enlightened people, educated people a little bit of, how to take control of their lives, now we need to be able to give people the guidance and the tools to do it.
Okay. And what do you mean by guidance?
When you learn a lesson, you're usually learning that lesson before you need it. It's a concept. But then there is actually applying what you learn to your actual life. So I took a class a few years ago about entrepreneurship, right? And I had a small business at the same time. So in class, the concepts were clear as day. Then when I went home to actually apply it to my business, because mine was a little bit different than what they were teaching, it wasn't as simple. And so it's kind of like that hand holding. Okay, this is my business specifically. How do I apply this principle to these things that I'm trying to accomplish?
Okay. And as far as tools?
We all internalize our experiences differently and we learn differently. You know, that's the part of being human. You know, we're very different from each other. So that different, we need to get a level playing field. So what are the gaps? Where do people need help where we can't provide just a conversation to get them where they need to be? And it could be around relationships. Like some people have been hurt severely. How do I help you with that? And so we just need to be able to tap into resources to get people to a good place.
All right. And then moving on to strategically building wealth. What do you mean by that?
Wealth does not happen by accident. If it did, more of us would be wealthy, right?
I know, I would.
So, you know, it comes with a plan, you know, vision. Vision is the biggest part of building it. What are you trying to build? You know, if you can't see it, you can't get there. And so, when my daughter was in like the 6th grade, I was trying to help her gear her education towards the life she wanted to live. Now, I didn't talk to her about that because she was still pretty young, but I'm like, if I can plant some seeds. And so I started asking her questions. You know, what kind of house do you want to live in when you grow up? What kind of car do you want to drive? How often do you want to go on vacation? How many kids do you want to have? I want her to think without limitation, because once we start working, it's like, oh, now we start to get the value of money and that people aren't really paying what we need to get what we want. So that's why I started the plan before she had an idea of what, you know, what the value of money is. So either way, so I started asking her the questions and then we started doing research. Okay, this is how much it's going to cost you to be able to live that kind of life. What kind of jobs pay that? And so we started working backwards. So we made a plan, we established some milestones, and then we broke those milestones down into projects, into tasks. So now we are not in a rush. She's in 6th grade. We have time. And so we start with vision because you need to be able to know what to plan for. And then once you plan, you can execute.
That's a great idea. Definitely going to try that with my daughter. Definitely.
Good.
And
first, it's vision, and then collaboration. Within our demographic, we are the workforce. We're the workforce, we're the consumers. So we are building up all of these things for everyone else. We have built empires, we have built businesses, infrastructure, wealth, but we're doing everything for the benefit of everyone else. We need to collaborate as a demographic to build for ourselves. And like I said, we need to be intentional. And so we need to be able to leverage our skill sets, our talents, our buying power, our dollars, our cents that we work so very hard for are the profits that companies make. And so other people are building assets and getting profits while we're just giving everything away. And so we just need to leverage what we have. We have choices. We can buy anything from anywhere. Look, Amazon is now competing with everyone. So if we have that many choices, why do you deserve my patronage? What's in it for me? So we need to use the concept of like supply and demand. Supply and demand is what they use against individuals to raise prices and lower prices. If there's a demand for something and not enough supply, they're going to raise those prices. If there's more of a supply and not enough of a demand, they're going to drop the prices. Well, okay, what is the individual's unit? What is the individual's tool to do the same thing to the market? Because you know what? It can't just be the business against the individuals.
Mm.
So we just need to be strategic. We need to think differently about, how we operate.
Understood. And then what's the reason for the movement?
Like I mentioned, we are a very vulnerable bunch. Every time the wind blows, there's a recession. So on average, every 6 to 10 years, there's some type of recession. This might be a depression, but right now they're not classifying it as anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when it does happen, because we are the workforce, we're the ones that are getting laid off. And it's not because we didn't show up. It's not because we didn't add value in our jobs. We did everything we were supposed to do. They just need to be able to trim the fat because business is about profit. So they are looking at their bottom line. And so we need to be able to do the same thing. In middle class, okay, so between middle class and lower income, we make up 71% of the society. 71%. If you were to ask me how many people are living paycheck to paycheck in the United States of America, it's at 78%. So they're too closely matched. And so we need a movement because no one else is showing up for us. We need to show up for us. So I'll give you some more statistics. And I don't want this to be teachy or preachy, but I think that people need to know. People struggling to make ends meet is at 52%. Americans struggling to get their basic necessities such as groceries and housing, 40%. The percentage of Americans without savings, 32%. And then most Americans cannot afford a $400 emergency. It's crazy. So there is definitely a need for a movement. We have an affordability crisis in this country. We have a savings crisis in this country. We have a debt crisis in this country and a retirement crisis in this country. Like, come on.
Yeah, definitely. And why do we need to change how we see things?
Because if we see things differently, we'll behave differently. We need to turn the light on, and just adjust our behaviors because we can't blame everyone else for our shortcomings. No, we weren't taught. But if you are taught, are you going to repeat the same patterns? Or can you change your behavior? And you want to change your behavior because you want to get different results.
Okay. So what expected results from the movement are you looking forward to?
I'd love for us to create our own economies. I'd love for us to abandon the whole notion of socioeconomic status. I'd love for us to fight for what we want. Like, I think that we take a very passive role. We're waiting for government. We're waiting for someone to come up with a solution. No one is coming to save us. No one. So we have to create our own.
Okay, that's definitely understandable. So how do we create our own economy?
Absolutely. Like I said, we make up a huge percentage of our society. So we need to be able to leverage our buying power. 70% of all economic activity in the United States is consumer spending. Who is the consumer? We are the consumer. So we need to tap into that. And everyone else is tapping into it. So like if you are investing in real estate, you're tapping into consumer spending because someone is selling a house, but someone is buying a house. But real estate can be very expensive. Investments in the stock market, it's about a performance of a company. So they usually base that on a company's profits. When we look to buy stocks, it's like, what companies are performing well? Who is buying that company's products? You get what I mean? So
Okay.
there are other means of tapping into consumer spending that is not expensive at all. And so we need to band together, form partnerships within middle class. So us. So we are working together and choosing the right vehicles that are going to perform for us.
Okay. Okay. And what do you talked a bit about status. What do you mean? What does status have to do with anything?
Absolutely. You know, everybody's so focused on our earnings, our education, and our profession. And they do it like it means that you are better than. But it doesn't. If you are a working person, you are a working person, because if you stop working for any reason, you're in the same boat. So I think that we need to stop focusing on those things, because those are just the starting point. That is what makes you marketable, quote unquote, right? But it doesn't make it any less. If you're a janitor, you're not any less likely to be able to leverage your income.
Okay. And what determines what you will accomplish?
What you're willing to do to grow yourself. So it doesn't have to be college, because college isn't for everyone. Most successful entrepreneurs, um, most successful entrepreneurs didn't even finish college. So college is part of a system, and
Yes.
and so we have this notion that that's the only way. It's not. What are you willing to do to identify your gaps? What are you doing to bridge those gaps? It's the work that you're willing to put into yourself. The other thing is, work is never going to be enough to build wealth, ever. No one is going to pay you to be able to retire early, go off into the sunset. No, because they need you hungry. They need you to be able to come back, show up for work consistently, because they don't have to hire. So, you know, like I said, we need a plan, we need to work the plan, and we need to stop being so passive in our own growth.
Okay, great. I mean, you know, it was great talking to you. It was great learning about different things that I never actually thought about, you know. Definitely enlightening and empowering, and I am excited to hear everything else you have to say about and start building my wealth strategically. Until next time, this
Until
is
next
Middle Class to Wealthy.
Thank you, Emma.
Bye.